So hello and buongiorno from Italy. Coming at you from Lake Garda, which is 2 hours from Venice and 1 hour from Europe's most romantic balcony in Verona. So I want to help you with your self-publishing checkoff list. So on the next video, which will be a more practical video, we will deal with Vellum, the software used to create beautiful books, and distribution, ISBN numbers, cover art, newsletters, all those kinds of practical things. But today is a little bit more nuanced. It's more of a philosophical conversation I'd like to have with you, and it's about editing. So I will share with you two different projects, two different books that required two entirely different types of editors. So when you think about editing, right, you've got development editing, which is your big picture overall, talks about plot, character, this type of thing. And then you've got content editing, which is more about flow and transition. And then you've got copy editing, where you get more onto sentence level, and it's more of a specific style guide and grammar and punctuation. And then you get to proofreading, which is basically your final flourish. And I used a classic editor for one and a proofreading editor for another. And my first project, my first book was called A European Odyssey, How a Boxer's Daughter Found Grace. And this was an immensely complicated project. And I used Scrivener to write. I've been using Scrivener for about 15 years. And the reason I use Scrivener is because it helps keep you organized. It is the most organized software out there. And if you're a Luddite like me, if you're not very technical, it's fantastic. It's just wonderful. I've just been very happy with it. And I know that people, including my husband, have tried to get me to use different types of software. But Scrivener is for me. So anyway, as far as finding an editor, when I wrote A European Odyssey, How a Boxer's Daughter Found Grace, this was an extraordinarily complicated project for many reasons, because it was deeply personal. I was dealing with primal issues. I was dealing with family secrets, which were mine to share. And then I was also talking about living in so many different cities, a lot of different countries, which require a lot of different reference points. And I needed to make those comprehensible, and I needed the reader to engage and go for a ride. So I was successful, but I spent 10 years writing the book and finding my voice and working on my style and creating this story, which is basically a series of short stories. That's what I write. And I found a fantastic editor, and I spent some money. I spent about 2,500, 3,000 euro, or US dollars, I guess, working with Michael Knight. But he had worked with New York Times best-selling authors, and to be honest, this was such an important project to me, and I'd worked so hard on the style and finding my voice that I really wanted to work with a top-notch editor, because the project was so important to me. And not only did I want to make it market-friendly and professional, I wanted it to be something that I would be proud of for a long time. And I had to really trust that editor, and I found the right one. And I knew that because we had a lot of dialogue before we actually launched into the project. And I think, when you go into those services, I've gone into a couple of those services, and really I found I wasted my time, because even though I put in the keywords and I spoke to people, I didn't have a very positive experience. So I think that's what I really want to impress upon you. Not only will you save money by eliminating the middle person, but I think once you do your own research, you will find the right person for you. And I did, so I'm really happy with the European Odyssey. I had some fantastic reviews. One person said it read like an airport novel, and I thought that was a fantastic compliment. And then I received a lovely letter from a high school friend a couple of weeks ago. And she said, Bailey, I was curious about you with your nomadic lifestyle, so I picked up the book. But I immediately forgot who you were and that I knew you, and became engaged in your story. So I knew that I had succeeded. And she was on a cruise ship, so she left the book on a cruise ship. She thought that would be a good idea, because she goes, I want other people to read your book. So I really appreciated that. And Michael Knight was a fantastic editor, and like I said, I invested some money, but that felt like the right thing to do, and I went directly. And then my second project was called Personal Legends of Piemonte. And this was an entirely different project. But again, it was immensely complicated because we had moved to Piemonte. We lived there for 7 years, and we met these wonderful characters, winemakers and cheesemakers and herbalists. And I just had to write about them, but I wasn't sure how. So I actually sat down, even though my Italian's awful. I found a translator, and I sat down and interviewed 12 Piemontesi from northern Italy, nestled up against the French and Swiss Alps. And there were 12 interviews, but I really wasn't sure what to do with them. I had them in Italian and English. So in order to really make them come alive, I created stories for each of the interviews. I wrote very personal stories about how these people taught me life lessons, how they impacted my life, how much my life changed living in the middle of the countryside in Piemonte. It was kind of a magical experience. And that's actually how I open it up, in this wicked, wicked world. I give you a place to explore, to restore the faith. And I name them wizards and all these sort of fantastical names, but their lives are very real. And I was really happy, but to get to the editing process, I had worked on the project for 2 or 3 years, and then I let it simmer because I really wasn't sure what to do with it and how to make it come alive, how to market it. So I had worked on these short stories, and I had edited them over and over again, and I had really worked on it for a long time. So I felt they were pretty good, and I went back online and I spent several hours trying to find an editor, and I found a guy named Henry Gifford. And I asked him, I said, hey, am I ready for the proofreading? Can we just do the proofreading, which is, like I said, it's the final flourish. And he said, yeah, no, I think you're right, let's do it. So I spent about €300 to €500, and he just did such a fantastic job. He obviously spent a lot of time doing it. And I couldn't have been happier. I couldn't have been happier with both of my editors. And I really wanted to share that with you because you can find your own. And I just would recommend not relying upon those services. So again, on the next video, we will work on the more practical matters. I'll share with you my experience on distribution and cover art and ISBN numbers and all that kind of jazz. So please visit my website if you're interested, baileyalexander.com. And my partner and I, we have a political podcast. It's called A Couple of Europhiles, and it's really fun. A lot of people enjoyed the latest one. It's called EU Toast or In Transition, because as you know, Europe is really going through some distress. And maybe we all are, but and I also don't know if you're, and another thing, I've got another podcast where I read to you. It's called Life is Like a Detective Novel. And for this book, I take snippets out of some of these essays that I wrote and I read to you. And I think you'll enjoy it. You'd have to buy the book for the interviews, and that is well worth the investment. And then I also spent 6 months getting the Audible version of A European Odyssey. So it's available on Audible if you're interested. And that was a really complicated process as well. But I'm not sure if you're using AI. I don't. And why I suggest you write is because, if you don't use it, you lose it. And also another thing, someone, actually 2 people have contacted me, and they want to work on writing about their family history, which I think is so wonderful because, you don't need to hire an editor for that. You can have friends and family help you edit that. But I just think that's a wonderful, wonderful thing to do, is do a private project, private memoir of your family. Because if you lose your parents, like I lost mine, you might, you'll have questions about your grandparents or your great-grandparents, and they have all the answers, and you can do your own research and create a beautiful legacy for your children and your grandchildren. So I can't recommend that enough. And I don't recommend AI, although it does help and it's creeping up all around us. But hey, I hope this helped you, and I will have another video out soon. So hey, you can catch me at baileyalexander.com. And like I said, I have the podcast, Life is Like a Detective Novel, where I read to you. So hey, thank you so much for listening. Arrivederci. Bye-bye.